Forza Motorsport is a game that really rewards those who race with a wheel. I've been using my Fanatec CSL DD a whole lot while racing the new Forza game, and I have to say I'm really enjoying it. I did have to tweak a fair few number of settings to make Forza really feel great in my CSL DD though. So in this video I'm going to run through my optimised Fanatec CSL DD wheel settings with Forza Motorsport. Just like I mentioned in my Logitech G923 Forza settings guide, I want to first touch on the assists. These can really change how your racing wheel feels, especially that simulation steering setting. If you like to leave assist on, that's not a problem. Just make sure you set the steering setting to simulation. This will make your racing wheel feel heavier and more force feedback will be able to come through. Also, try to race with manual gears on. Many Fanatec wheels such as the McLaren GT3 V2, which I'm currently using, have paddle shifters built in. It really adds to the immersion when you're changing gears yourself. Now once you've set the steering to simulation and adjusted your other settings, we can move to the button mapping. As with any new racing wheel you set up for Forza, you should check the input settings. These are basically your button mapping settings, and they control what inputs control which in-game actions. Run through these and make sure your throttle, your brake, your steering and your shifting are all set to the correct input. To change the input, simply scroll to the setting you wish to change, click it and then press the new input. After the button mapping is all set up, head over to the advanced input settings, as this is where we'll change how the force feedback feels in Forza Motorsport with our CSL DD wheel. These advanced settings let you tinker with various parts of your force feedback. Forza actually offers quite a few different settings, which is really refreshing to have a lot of things to tinker with. I'm going to show you my recommended settings for my Fanatec CSL DD, but it's worth noting I'm using the 8Nm version of the DD, so if you're using the 5Nm version, you may want to adjust a few of these settings up, and if you're using a DD1, DD2, you may want to bring some of them down. Now I've got all my dead zone settings to 0 on the inside and 100 on the outside. This is quite simply the ideal way to set up a racing wheel. As long as your pedals and wheels are both correctly configured, you shouldn't have any issues running 0 and 100. Then for the vibration scale, leave this at 50, and for the force feedback scale, I've gone with 95. Remember, if you're using a 5Nm version of the CSL DD, you may want to crank this setting up a little bit. But if you're using a DD1 or DD2, you may want to lower it a bit. For the steering self-alignment, I've gone with 70, and this is a combination of both mechanical and pneumatic trail scales and can be seen as a kind of global controller for both of these settings. For the mechanical trail scale, I've gone with 160, and for the pneumatic trail scale, I've lowered it down to 30. These affect how pronounced the effect of losing grip are, and when set too aggressively, they can cause your wheel to go very light to enhance the feeling of understeer. If you like that, if you need a little bit of help with feeling when you're understeering, increase the pneumatic trail scale to around 100 and you'll get a really light kind of sensation when your car starts to understeer, the steering wheel will go really light. Don't lower the mechanical trail scale any lower than about 140, because again, you will almost not get any force feedback in your wheel. Then for the road feel scale, this is an area where I thought Forza was lacking a little bit, so I've increased it to 105 just to try and get a few more of those track details to really shine through. I then lowered the load sensitivity to 35, and I've set the wheel damping scale to 90, which is a little bit high, but I thought that the wheel needed a little bit more weight in it. Lowering the pneumatic trail scale makes the force feedback a little bit less pronounced, so increasing the wheel damping just adds a bit more weight to the wheel. And then I've lowered the centre spring strength to 35 as well, which is the force at which your wheel returns to centre. Finally, I've set the dynamic damper behaviour to 50 and leave the steering sensitivity and linearity both to 50 as well to create a true one-to-one steering effect. You can also change a bunch of settings on your Fanatec wheel directly, and I'm going to show you on screen now which settings I'm using. For the sensitivity, leave this at 900 degrees, which is basically your rotation of the wheel itself. For the force feedback, I've gone with 90. Again, scale this up if you're using a 5Nm wheel, or scale it down if you're using a DD1 or DD2. I've gone with peak force feedback scaling. Then I've gone for 30 and 20 on the damper and friction, and 0 on the inertia. For the filter, I've gone with 1. For the force feedback intensity, I've gone with 90, and then for the force, spring and damper, I've left them all at 100, which is standard for a Fanatec CSL DD wheel, and so is 100 for the shock. Then for the brake level indicator, multi-position switch, this is just down to your personal preference. Now with these settings, my Fanatec CSL DD really came alive. If you're running a more powerful Fanatec wheel such as a DD1 or DD2, you may want to tone some of these settings down, mainly the force feedback settings, the global controllers, those sort of things. But let me know in the comments below how you find these settings. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button and consider subscribing as well. But until next time guys, I will see you on track.